Greetings, everyone. Welcome to COS Today. I'm Dale Parrish, the host, along with my co-host, Mr. Ken Kashuba. Hi, Ken.
Hi, Dale. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing fine, doing fine. Boy, and are you enjoying this great weather? I tell you, isn't this? I wish we could have this all the time.
I like the mid-September and even October sometimes to get those little relapses into summer. So yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
welcome it. Yeah, yeah.
Well,
Knowing what's coming.
I'm getting ready for all the leaves to fall. I have a lot of trees, and that'll be another task to do.
I'm sure you lose a little sleep over that at night at times.
It seems that way. It seems that way. Well, listen, just for the record here, this is broadcast number 313, Ken, and you've been on board for 171 of them. So
Oh my, oh my.
we're clipping right along. Ken and I got a busy week this week. We're going to be at the summit in Indianapolis, the 18th to the 20th. This is the annual Convention of States Summit. And this year they picked Indianapolis to have the summit. So, of course, Ken and I both are based here in Indiana. So we'll be traveling there to, well, Ken's almost there already. I'm up in the northeastern corner of the state. So we'll be spending most of our week down there this week. So ought to be a good time. Ought to be a good time. Looking forward to it.
Yes, we are.
Okay, Ken. Let's treat everyone to a little reminder from Maringo Mike here. Okay, just to kind of get everyone on the same page here.
Rango Mike here, asking you to hit that like, subscribe, and especially that notification bell so you'll be reminded every time we go live. We really do appreciate your support. Now, back to our program.
I'll tell you, that Maringo Mike, he never misses a beat, does he?
Tell you what, he's got it down. He's got his part
down. Yeah, yes, he does. Well, as we have done for some weeks now, we're going to start the program out this evening with our segment called In Focus. And I really enjoyed this, Ken. I had some reservations about it when we first decided to do it, but as usual, I was wrong. At least I think so. I really enjoyed it. We bring on a couple guests to join Ken and I, and we just talk about what each of us is focusing on in the news this past week or at the current time. So that's what we're going to do. So let's jump into this first segment, Ken, and let's bring on our guest this evening. First, Mr. Tim Heidenreich. Hi, Tim.
Hello.
Hello, Tim.
Tim is our state prayer coordinator. Have I got that right, Tim?
Yep, that's right.
That's right. Okay. And Tim, you've been in Convention of States a long time, about as long as I have, I guess.
2016 is when I came in. Yeah.
2016. Yeah. Okay. All right. And another guest tonight, Larry Hudson, Region Captain. And I remember recruiting Larry to come into COS. He was a hard recruit, if I remember right. He had some.
You and Rachel.
Yeah, he had some serious questions, and he had to study things quite extensively to be assured that he was making the right decision. But I'm glad he decided to join us, and like I said, he's now a region captain and doing a great job for us. Doing a great job. And also, I might mention Larry leads the Meet the Founders series that we do here from time to time. So he's working on Ben Franklin right now and doing a great job there. Okay, let's get to what we want to talk about here, guys. In Focus. Tim, why don't you lead us off here with what's been your focus here recently?
Well, like so many other people in the whole United States, but also around the world, I've been focused on this Charlie Kirk assassination.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to me how it feels so spiritual. I think it really is spiritual going on. Ken had said earlier, it's demonic that this happened, this kind of an assassination, because how could you kill somebody like that if you didn't have a bunch of hate in your heart? So I've been thinking about that a lot, and it occurred to me how much has changed just since Wednesday in the Charlie Kirk's organization, Turning Point USA. So that's what I wanted to talk about tonight is what's happened there, and also a little bit about what must be going on in the minds of these liberals that are coming out with all this vitriol against Charlie Kirk. And so I'd like to start off by talking about what happened to me this morning. This morning, my wife and I were reading a devotional in this thing called The Upper Room, which we look at every day. And there's a few verses in there from John 16, and it just seemed to match up to what we've been seeing for the last week. So I'm just going to read those few verses and then talk about what has been the result in Turning Point USA since this happened. Because I think there's a very positive spiritual thing happening right now. So here are the verses. It's John 16, verses 2 and 3, and then I'm skipping 4, go to 5 to 7. So here's what it is. It's Jesus talking to his apostles. He's saying, "They will put you out of the synagogues. Indeed, the hour is coming when whoever kills you will think he is offering a service to God. And they will do these things because they have not known the Father nor me." Now I skip to 5. "But now I'm going to him who sent me, and none of you asked me, 'Where are you going?' But because I have said these things to you, sorrow has filled your heart. Nevertheless, I tell you the truth, it is to your advantage that I go away. For if I do not go away, the Helper will not come to you, but if I go, I will send him to you." So Jesus is saying all these good things are going to happen. I'm going to die, but all these good things are going to happen. Well, what's happened to Turning Point USA since last Wednesday? As of last week, they had 900 college chapters, and they had 1,200 high school chapters. So they had about 2,000 chapters across the United States. And people were saying, Charlie Kirk used those chapters to influence the election last time because he got so many young people convinced to vote for Trump. Since the assassination happened 5 days ago, they've received applications for 37,000 new chapters.
Is that right? Really?
Yeah. Charlie's vision was to get to 23 chapters, one in every school across the United States. But they've had 37,000 inquiries for places that want to open chapters. They've had hundreds of people apply to come to work there, and hundreds of people offer to come to work there for free, just volunteer to do things they can to turn things around.
Wow.
So my thought is, if they think that he changed the election with 2,000 of these outposts, what's going to happen if he has 30,000 of these outposts at the midterm election?
Yeah.
I would suggest this might be a continuing topic that we might want to update on in future roundtables as we go, because it's going to probably affect the structure, or not the structure, but it's going to affect the perspective of the United States. And I also wonder how many more of these are going to open up across the world, not just the United States, because we've seen millions of people in all these other countries, in Europe and other countries, Bulgaria, having vigils for Charlie because they believed in what he was saying. So
I've seen that in the news as well. Yeah, thousands of people turning out for these things. Yeah. That's interesting. I was not aware of that.
Tim, I'm glad you opened with a couple of the verses there, because I think the curtain's been pulled back on the spiritual aspect of this whole thing. Obviously, and I want to go ahead and share a verse as well, if you don't mind, that speaks to the spiritual side of things and people who do these type of things. In John 8:44, it says, "Ye are of your father the devil, and the lusts of your father ye will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own. He's a liar and the father of it." I found that to be a very interesting verse.
Yeah, good. That fits right in there. LW, what do you think about that?
Well, I'm thinking back. I can't remember where I saw it, but I read following this catastrophe, this diabolical murder, premeditated murder, that they've launched a website. I don't know who is behind it, but they're going to try to find those basically who advocate violence, online. And evidently, they've received already, and I think I saw this yesterday, 20,000 submissions to this website, and it is soon going to be converted, I guess, to and Tim, you'll know what I'm talking about better than I do, but a searchable database. And these 20,000 submissions, and I assume many others that come in or continue to come in, they're going to be filterable, I think was the term, by general location, job industry, continuously updated, some sort of an archive of radical activists that are calling for violence. And they're going to post screenshots of all these notes or posts that are made, identify who these individuals are. It's just amazing what the technology they're putting to work here toward this effort. And I'm reminded, the old you can't shout fire in a crowded theater. Words that incite violence are not protected free speech, and you can be prosecuted for what you say in public. So maybe this is something that will put a damper on some of this.
Yeah, and you've also seen some stories about, like, there's a nurse that turned in a doctor in some hospital because he said he was happy about this thing, and the hospital fired him. There's been school administrators, multiple other people getting fired because people are outing them. And that's what I think you're talking about on that website. They're going to be having people put that up there, and then they're going to run that down. And what's the word? They put these people out so they're identified in the public so people know who this is that's doing it. Yeah.
And the extreme left's going to go up in arms over this, saying that here's our totalitarianism and authoritarianism and all the stuff they'll come out with. But I relate that to the time when we go back to COVID, and we were being, our military and others in the workforce had to get a shot or they lost their job. And there was, nobody squeaked a peep back then. So the hypocrisy is just unbelievable.
That's why I wanted to also talk about this. What's going on in their minds? To my way of thinking, it's a lack of acceptance of reality about the world. They're denying the reality of God's creation, male and female, and all the other parts of his creation. That the earth can heal itself. They deny all that stuff. It's a lack of wisdom on their part because they're not asking God for wisdom. They're just bringing it on themselves and creating things. So I say, you can't trust the judgment of people who think that way. If you think a man can become a woman and have periods and nurse a baby, you're just nuts. There's just no way. You can't change a person's DNA. If you want to know if that's a man or a woman, take a shot of their DNA. It'll tell you right then. Doesn't matter whether they have a dress on or pants on. It's going to tell you, and it's not going to have changed since they were born. If I said to one of these liberals, hey, come out to my garage with me, I want to show you my truck. And we go out there and it's a car. And I say, yeah, it's a truck, and you better call it a truck. Don't you dare call it a car, or you're a hater. It doesn't change it from a truck to a car, right? And that's what they're trying to convince us of.
Well, unless it's a Tesla. Now, that Tesla truck to me looks like a car. But anyway, we won't go there.
But you get my point, right? And I think when these guys say to us, well, MAGA people should be killed, it's okay if you kill MAGA people because they're bringing about an existential threat to democracy.
Democracy.
You know what the existential threat to democracy is? That bullet that killed Charlie. It turned off his free speech, and the end of democracy happened for him right then because this scumbag killed him.
All right, this is going to be a hot time. 37,000 applications. Is that what you said? Is that the number you did? 37,000
people want to start chapters, and hundreds of people are applying to work there or work there for free.
Are those 37,000? Are those colleges or high schools or both? Or
And they didn't break it down, and they didn't break it down. It was on the news. It was in the newspaper yesterday, and it was on the news today on television.
But that is an excellent point that you bring up, Tim, about the impact that could have on future elections. If that all comes about, we know it. Like you said, we know it had an impact on the last election. Can you just imagine how much of an impact this might have on any future elections? So,
Had you guys been paying any attention to him before he got assassinated? I hadn't. I mean, I knew he was a young guy that was going to college campuses, but I didn't realize he had a worldwide audience of millions of people.
No, I
Did
didn't.
you guys know that?
I didn't know he had that big of an audience either. I followed him in the news like anybody else.
Not the worldwide that we're seeing, but I did watch. I have watched some of his YouTube clips, and I think the other thing that really I don't know gets under my skin is the fact that here's a guy that was out willing to debate something, a skill that we've lost in this country. He's out there debating, and he did it in a godly way. He wasn't attacking people. He was just trying to get them to understand his point of view. And then, as his saying goes, prove me wrong. And anyone that I watched, nobody proved him wrong. They just argued with him in manners of hate. Those that did. So.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Tim. Thanks,
Sure.
Larry. What's on your mind, bud?
Well, it's been in my craw for, as I mentioned earlier, for a long time. And it's not all that up to date, I guess. But I'm just I don't know how many times I looked over at my wife. We watched the news together, and I'll say I can't believe what we just heard. How can one person do that? And of course, I'm talking about a federal judge. So juristocracy is the term that I'm coming up with. It's not my term. It's I guess a French jurist way back, not too long ago, coined it. And it's basically in, I guess, maybe French, I don't know, government of judges. But, think back over the last 6 months and even before this, during the Biden administration and perhaps even during Obama's administration, a single federal judge sitting in a single courthouse somewhere, stopping a law, a legislative law, or an executive order meant to apply really to the entire nation. And so, I look at my wife and I said, how can this happen? How can one person, unelected no less, have that much power? And so this has got to change, in my view. We can't continue down this road. I'm reminded, if you look in the Constitution, everybody has always said we have 3 equal branches of government. Well, we don't. That's not what the founders intended. The legislative branch is by far the most important branch in government. It has all of the verbiage in the Constitution. Then the executive follows, and then there's that little judiciary that barely gets a mention. Didn't even have their own building when we started this country, and yet they have usurped their authority, and they sit at the very highest level now. You would think we are a government of judges, of jurist elites. And
in the Constitution, those judges aren't even mentioned. It's only the Supreme Court that's mentioned, not district judges. They were created later by Congress.
Judges, not even Supreme Court justices.
Right.
I thought the Supreme Court came out and addressed this situation.
They did
some weeks ago.
They did. Trump versus CASA, CASA, and I looked that up. CASA is a Latino immigration advocacy organization. They brought the lawsuit, and basically SCOTUS, they ruled that to significantly limit the federal court's authority to issue nationwide injunctions, I think is the way they phrased it. Amy Coney Barrett wrote the majority opinion. They found that universal injunctions really exceeded their geographical jurisdiction of wherever that court happened to be located, that district court. And that
unless it was a class action suit for like a class of people that existed outside of that district. So like if it's a whole thousands of people have been cheated by somebody in multiple districts, they could have a class action, but that's the only way they were supposed to be able to do it outside of their own district. What you said is exactly right, Larry.
Yeah. But of course that ruling's had little effect. I mean, if you think about it, lower courts have continued to issue these injunctions.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yes.
With impunity, it would appear. So, in my view, the radical that I am, the only course I think now left open to the executive branch is to just simply ignore the injunction, proceed full steam ahead, and perhaps this will bring the issue to Congress, because in my view, they're the determiner. If you look at Article 3 in the Constitution, it establishes the Supreme Court, but it leaves to Congress the authority to establish the inferior courts, as they're called.
Oh, okay.
That's clear that Congress then possesses the power to regulate those lower courts. And it seems to follow to me, too, that they have the authority to limit the jurisdiction of those lower courts and rein in the power.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point.
So I think we need Congress to get off their duff and act. I don't think they will. I think it's going to go back to the Supreme Court, particularly if he would just go full speed ahead and ignore these things. It would take it back into the SCOTUS, and we'd just be back. Juristocracy would just be reinforced. But that's my opinion.
All right. Good deal. Ken, what's on your mind, bud?
Well, I'm gonna kind of piggyback right off there what Larry was talking about as far as our Congress not acting, not doing their job. I'm going to just lead with this because it's really going to fold into the main topic I was going to talk about. But I got thinking about this while this discussion was going on. Quite frankly, I'm really appalled at the actions of our Congress, or non-actions, specifically in most recent cases where we're talking about a body that's supposed to be there doing a job, and we're seeing reactions like we got concerning Charlie Kirk, first of all, where you got people that are objecting to not the moment of silence. I think the moment of silence actually took place, but they were objecting to somebody holding a prayer in our Congress, in our House, basically, and basically refusing to have prayer over the Charlie Kirk situation. And that kind of leads me into my other part of Congress that totally has me just shaking my head, and that's watching these Congress hearings with RFK. These people weren't in. These Congress members who were supposed to be there doing the work of the people couldn't ask legitimate questions, couldn't carry on a specific conversation, couldn't do what's right for the people. No, they had to sit there and ridicule, throw darts, throw fire at RJK because they disagree with them. It's disgusting. It's really disgusting the way our elected officials are carrying on business in our House. And I now lead that to what I find as far as the RFK connection is. I was looking at the amount of Chinese-owned agricultural and forest land in our country. As of December 2023, it was 277,336 acres of U.S. agricultural land. We're talking about food supply. We're talking about location of these Chinese-owned lands. Most of them very near Air Force bases, military outlets, and we just you don't hear anything about it. It just goes on and on and on. And I don't know how that's even that's even allowed in this country. So that's my rant. And then you guys are welcome to chime in, but that's kind of what my focus has been.
Well, you mentioned this inept Congress. Think about with Charlie Kirk, but even before that tragedy, think about how many people in elected office that get on television and incite people to violence with their own rhetoric. These are elected officials. They need to be held to a much higher standard than you and I. We don't have a public platform like they do. And to me, they're the people that we should be hauling into court.
I think there's a direct correlation already with the amount of hate speech that they use, and it's all on video. You can spend one night of watching multiple TV stations and catch so many of these congressional leaders spewing hate and violence and actually inciting people to go out and burn Teslas, do whatever they can to stop this movement. So I agree with you, Larry. It's unheard of, and these Congress people that are doing that, they do need to be held responsible, and they need to be booted out. Really,
they need to be censured at the very least for the first infraction, and then actually criminally charged in subsequent cases. Maxine Waters comes to my mind.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that too. I mean, how many times have you seen that video of her?
Yeah.
Over
she's
and
not
over.
the only one, and there are others that are much more inflammatory in my view.
And even higher up. Look at Schumer. The supposed leader. Schumer's just
against sitting Supreme Court justices.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, the Republicans are good at disciplining their own, but they won't take the steps to discipline someone from the other party.
Yeah.
And so many of these.
Well, it's subjective. Hate speech is subjective, and hate speech is protected speech. I mean, but inciting someone to violence is different than just speaking hatefully.
Yeah.
Well, I heard Trump. Did you guys see Trump's news conference today? He signed an executive order, and he had the press in there. It was around 4:35 o'clock today, and one of the questions they asked him was about burning the flag. And he had Pam Bondi standing behind him. And he said, Pam, I'm going to ask you to look into, can people who are burning a flag, if it starts a fight or a riot, can they be charged with inciting a riot as a crime? And then it has nothing to do with free speech. It's causing a riot to happen and people's lives are endangered. And she said, Mr. President, I'll look into it. So we'll see what happens with that. Wouldn't that be wonderful if we could stop this flag burning that way?
Well, I've thought about that, and I think the Supreme Court did us a disfavor here, or a disservice. Burning a flag is not speech, but the Supreme Court said that it was. No, it's an action.
Yeah.
The Framers never intended free speech to include action. That's not it. Speech, it's talking.
Yeah.
That's all.
But they think free speech is giving money to a political candidate too. So.
You get these lawyers involved in things, and you get all kinds of twisted, nonsensical, anything to make some money.
Well, okay, we're winding down here. We got just a few minutes left.
Yeah, Dale, did we leave anything for you?
There's everything you've talked about was on my plate at one point or another. But certainly, I'm still focused on the cities and the fighting the crime and going into these cities with the National Guard where Memphis kind of caught me off guard. I'm not sure where that came from, but obviously there's got to be some reasons for that. I would think, but certainly.
They asked for it.
Huh?
They requested it, Dale. They asked for it. Yeah, the governor requested they go into Memphis. And there was several months trying to stop the crime networks.
There was a senator there that said it's been a long. It's not publicized like Chicago, but there was a senator said it's been going on a long time there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But certainly, Chicago is a prime example, and not all of Chicago. It's just a certain area of Chicago is where the crime is all these deaths that you hear about every weekend in Chicago, it's generally from a certain area of Chicago. It's not from all over the whole city and the much of the city, from what I understand, is very safe, and certainly the suburbs. But it's just certain areas. St. Louis is the same thing, and some of these other cities. I'll tell you, and I do believe this is a 90-10, certainly maybe an 80-20 issue. This fighting crime like this, I think this is going to hurt the Democrats if they continue to balk at this. I think it's going to hurt them.
You know, we were talking about hypocrisy a little while ago. Isn't it interesting that in those big cities, whether it's New Orleans, Memphis, wherever it is, the crime is going on in the places where the minorities live, not the places where the rich white people live.
Yeah.
And those people that are in charge, the mayors, etc., always say they want to protect the people and they want those people to vote for them, but they won't clean up the crime in those areas. That's who it's hurting. Talk about hypocrisy. That's huge.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, I wonder, Dale. I mean, I worry about crime in major big cities, but I wonder if we put it on a per capita basis. I wonder what figures would come for cities like Indianapolis and other like-sized cities on a per capita basis. I mean, when I look at the news every night, there's 4 or 5 deaths. In Chicago, they get upset with 25. Well, 25 is not that much more than 4 if you compare the populations of each city.
Yeah. So you think per capita would be a better measure?
Oh, yeah. I think that's the only way to do it fairly.
Mm-hmm. Good point. This prayer thing in the legislature, was it the House that they refused to do that prayer?
It was the House. Yeah.
Isn't don't they open the House every morning with a prayer?
They used to. I don't know if they still do
every day too.
Be a good question. Yeah, I believe they do, but yeah.
As far as I know, they do.
There is a House chaplain.
I'd like to know how many of them are sitting there with their earplugs in while prayer's going on. That's what I'd like to know.
Yeah. I this Charlie Kirk thing and the ramifications and that's happening around it is very, very interesting. Very interesting. And I think, Tim, I made a note on this. I think this is something we should pursue as a topic for either a presentation or perhaps a roundtable discussion. I think
if you get the statistics once a month or every 2 months or something like that and see what that growth really is. Just because they got all those applications doesn't mean they're going to agree to them all.
Right.
But even if they got, suppose they just double from 2,000 to 4,000 or 2,000 to 6,000 or something, that's still a major influence on the nation.
It is. The influence.
The international implications are what blew me away. I read that 17 different nations are holding vigils. Germany, UK. I got online and looked at half a dozen different vigils, and these weren't just 100 people. These were thousands of people. Yeah. South Korea erected a temporary monument for people to gather around. I mean, I could not believe.
That's why I think it's so spiritual, because you don't just get that from a political movement. The Holy Spirit's moving out there and affecting these people that are becoming Christians in these countries, and they're coming forward then.
Well, we had a great awakening during the founding of this country, Tim. So maybe we need a great awakening to recapture that.
We definitely need one.
Yeah.
When's the last time? Who's the last celebrity? We'll call him or her a celebrity that has died and had this kind of impact. Who's the last one that you know of prior to
Rush Limbaugh? Rush Limbaugh was huge in about 2000.
I was going to say Rush, but
It wasn't like
I
this.
don't. I don't think
No.
he
No,
had
but I mean, it's the biggest one I can think of. Yeah.
JFK.
Well,
JFK.
you'd have to consider MLK, but there was no social media to really expand
Right.
it like
That-
that.
Well, that's true.
JFK,
That's true.
MLK.
That's
But-
true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the Reagan funeral was pretty big too. But of course, he died of old age. I mean, it wasn't like he was
But again,
assassinated.
that was really before social media.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
It's just
I-
it's going to be an interesting.
This is
Oh, I'll tell you who it was.
watershed.
It was Princess Diana. You know, when Princess Diana died, all over the world, everybody was concerned.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's true.
That's true.
true.
I'd
That's true.
forgotten her.
But she didn't. She wasn't the head of a movement, and
No.
Right.
and I think this is different in that this is a movement.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
pure celebrity.
Right.
Okay, guys, good discussion. Thank you very much. That was very, very interesting as usual.
Good to see
And
you
I
all.
think I really enjoy us doing this. So, Tim, Larry, thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much.
Okay, so long.
See you.
Ken, once again, like I said, I really enjoy doing this segment.
Yeah, and I found it. I mean, just to kind of wrap up what I was thinking on that too is at the very end of this, his wife Erica, she looks all with all the capacity and power she needs to carry this on. She looks like a strong woman that's going to carry this
You think
forward.
so? I didn't see her address that she made.
I watched it. I was quite taken back, and well, not taken back. I was moved by the not only the length, but I mean there was times when when you could emotion got to her, but she was really adamant about really carrying the torch forward, and she said she's going to make this happen more so. So
Good for her. Great.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, Ken, I want to move into our next segment here, and this has to do with classified documents. And you remember that some weeks ago where they discovered burn bags sitting around. You remember hearing that in the news? Well, we caught up with a COS volunteer out of out of Wisconsin.
Oh.
His name is Dave Serta. He's a legislative liaison for Convention of States in Wisconsin. But Dave and I share something with regard to classified documents. We both were in the military and dealt with classified documents in the jobs that we had in the military, to include the disposal of classified documents. So I wanted to bring Dave on. He wanted to talk a bit about the burn bags and talk about classified documents in general. So I caught up with him finally and recorded this interview with him. So I want to go ahead and play that right now. Okay.
Good.
Greetings, everyone. Dale Parrish, COS Today host. Well, folks, you've heard in the news recently about burn bags, haven't you? Well, we have a gentleman with us this evening that shares a military experience with regard to classified documents. And I say shares because I personally also have a military experience in classified documents. So without further ado, let me bring on our guest, Dave Serta, from the state of Wisconsin. So let me bring him on here. Hi, Dave.
Hi, Dale.
Good. Glad to have you tonight, bud.
Glad to be here.
I was just telling everybody we're going to talk about burn bags / classified documents. I mean, that's what's in those burn bags. So first of all, let's talk a little bit. Let's brief everyone very, very quickly on our shared military experience with classified documents. Tell everybody, I understand you were in the Marine Corps, right?
Correct.
And what was your job and what did you do?
I was my MOS was an ordnanceman.
Okay.
which required a clearance, secret clearance.
You had a secret clearance. Okay.
Yes.
All right. And you part of your job was storing certain classified documents for your group. Is that right?
Storing them, keeping them updated, and getting rid of them when they were outdated.
Okay. And that involved burning documents when they were
Absolutely.
outdated, right? Right.
Absolutely. No shredding was allowed.
That's right. I was kind of in the same role. I was in the Army. I was a battalion level, what they call an S2 in NCO, intelligence NCO. Very low level. Let's admit you and I, we were at the low level of things when it came to classified documents. But I also had a secret clearance, and we had classified documents stored as well, and of course you're right. Of course, we didn't have shredding machines back then when I was in, but that would not have been allowed. They had to be burned. Any documents that were outdated, replaced, had to be burned, and those that had to be documented. And I'm sure you had to do the same thing.
Yep.
It took not only your signature, but a higher ranking officer signature.
Yep.
So what was being burned was by no means a secret to the people that needed to know, and that's very important. You hear so much talk about classified documents today in news, and you hear about people having security clearances. But if you agree with me, David, one of the key factors is the need to know with regard to a security clearance, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
They need to know, and the people that originated these documents need to know that it's been destroyed. They keep track of that.
That's right. That's right. So this is what's in those burn bags is documented somewhere. And,
yes, inventory and by document ID and serial number and page number. It's
exactly.
And someone is responsible for it. You said it's a low level position, but it's the most responsible position in keeping those secrets secret.
Yep. Okay. Well, tell us what all did you want to point out to us tonight then?
Well, that the burn bag is just what it is, just what it says. It's a place to store documents that it has to be destroyed. And an individual like us is responsible for everything in that bag. And it's not set out in the hallway. It is behind closed and locked doors and it's kept in a safe.
Exactly.
It's not hanging, sit out there in the hallway. So that when you pick up new documents, and most of what you put in the burn bag is individual pages as those documents are updated, changed, rewritten. So you're responsible for that.
Right. Right.
And then when it comes time to burn them, you take the bag along with the inventory and a senior officer. You go to the incinerator, and the officer has the inventory, and you pull out the pages and read the description to him, and he checks it off his list. And it's a long, involved process. And even after it's done, you check the incinerator, make sure everything's been destroyed.
I remember that so well. I remember when we had inspections. I want to say when our battalion was inspected by higher ups, one of the things that they actually checked, we had a barrel, we had a burn barrel where documents, classified documents that had to be burned in this barrel. And one of the things that they checked during inspection was were there any ashes left in that barrel? Were there any documents that didn't get burned completely left in that barrel? I remember that very closely. Yeah.
Your fragments of documents. Can't
Yeah.
have it. And when you get to inspection and they haven't been cleared by the squadron or by S2, you tell them, you keep them out of your office. They are not allowed in. Full bird colonels, you get to say no to, which is a lot of fun. You're a enlisted guy.
What rank had you reached in the Marine Corps?
I was an E4 corporal.
E4 corporal, were you? Okay. I had made it to E5, buck sergeant. Anyway, I was very fortunate to have that job. I did not train for that job. I like so many in the military, you just get thrown in where you're needed, and you learn on the job to a large degree.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I remember the thermite grenades we had to have for each safe. That if we ever bugged out, you put a grenade on each safe and set it off, and it burns through the top of the safe and destroys everything in it.
Wow. Oh, wow. Well, we didn't have that. All right.
Well, that's why I wondered when we got out of Afghanistan, why they didn't put their I know Motor T has thermite grenades they put on the engines of everything, and it melts through the engine and just disables it, as well as the artillery. You know, they put the thermite grenade inside of it and it melts it. It's a combination of iron oxide and aluminum oxide, and burns at about 300 degrees Fahrenheit.
Wow.
3,000 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah. Okay.
So
what I think what you're saying here is that with regard to these burn bags, there's records somewhere of what's in those bags, right?
Right.
So there
and
should be.
There's a news report that they were sitting in somebody's closet, which was amazing to me because that's confidential, secret, top secret stuff in there. You don't just leave it out for somebody to go through.
Right. That doesn't sound right either. If that was the case, that's very, very disturbing. That
yes, it is.
That the security was that lax. If that's true, if that is the case, yeah.
And who was responsible? Who was responsible for it? Somebody was.
You know, that hasn't been back in the news, has it?
No, it hasn't. And I'm surprised.
Yeah. So what do you think should be done about that?
Well, check their policies and procedures. Make sure somebody was responsible for it, has an inventory, and knows what's in that. For them to just stumble across it in a closet doesn't make sense. To me, anyway. And they should tighten up their policies and procedures on how to handle that stuff. Yeah,
it'd be nice to know an update on that situation to see. I can't even remember exactly how were these discovered. Do you recall?
Cash Patel and Bongino are just going through the offices of the FBI and having to uncover them.
Wow. Boy, if that's the case, that's really that's not good. That's not good.
No, not good at all.
All right.
And of course, after we burned them and got the check off, you had to send it upstream. What did you burn? Because the originators of those documents needs to know it was destroyed. They keep an inventory too of what's been distributed to who needs to know. So once you get done, you send it upstream, then they can take it off their inventory list of where it's been. It's controlled tightly controlled from originator to destruction. And everybody around it knows that it's there and been destroyed.
And you know that that's a monumental job, quite honestly, because I guess, geez, in our government, there's thousands and thousands of pages of classified documents out there, millions, I would imagine.
Oh my God, they classify everything. It's ridiculous.
And so many things are classified, probably things that don't need to be classified. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. How many flies you swatted that day? Because it may be little drones.
Yeah. But I do want to reiterate this because I don't hear this talked about very much in the news, and that's the need to know. So many these people that had security clearances while they were in the government, and let's just assume while they're in a government job, they have a need to know, and they need that security clearance. But once they're out of that position and no longer have that need to know, there is no reason for them to have that security clearance.
No, it isn't. It should be removed immediately.
Should be removed. That's right. That's right. So it's not intended to be a career thing or a resume enhancement.
Right. Right. Absolutely. It's nuts how many people out there have security clearances.
Right. Right.
When you hear in the news that they're taking away so-and-so's clearance, you slap your forehead and say, well, how and why do they still have it?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
It's not necessary. They're writing a book. They're always writing a book.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I agree with you. Okay. Well, I don't know what's happened on these burn bags. Be interesting to know what has happened with that particular situation. But anyway, I think maybe if we can do some research on that, we'll find out. But anything else that you want to add to this whole topic of the burn bags and classified documents?
As a country, we should tighten up our procedures and all this stuff, all of it. Our enemies are everywhere, and we are too lax with our control of information within our government.
My goodness, here we're talking about documents, printed documents, when in fact we live in a world of data and unprinted material. So that's a whole nother area of security.
Yes, it is.
We didn't have that. We didn't have that back in our day.
No, we didn't.
When were you in the Marine Corps? When were you in?
65 to 69.
Okay, I was 66 to 68, so we were right in the same time. Same time period. Did you serve in Vietnam?
Yes, I did. I went over there we went over together as a unit and came back individually.
Did you?
Which they've learned is a mistake. You shouldn't do that.
Really?
Today we dealt with paper files. Like you said, today's office is all electronic.
Right.
And we had the county up here, Iowa County, that their computers were hacked and held for ransom. Each office, no one in each of those offices, the Register of Deeds, knew how to deal with paper.
Is that right?
All this stuff was on paper. They didn't know how to file it, retrieve it. They just didn't know how to do it without a computer.
Oh my!
That's where we're at.
Yeah. I forgot to mention Dave's the legislative liaison in Wisconsin, state of Wisconsin, for COS. So anyway, things have changed quite a bit, Dave, since we were in the military.
Stone Age.
classified
Yes.
documents. Well, Dave, I think that's pretty much a wrap on this topic. Hopefully, we'll find out more about what's happened with these burn bags and if there's been any uptick in the security of these bags. So
That would be nice to know.
if you come across any additional information, I hope you'll let us know and we'll bring you back on and update everybody. Okay.
All right. I'd be happy to do it.
All right. Well, Dave, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate your work. Thank you very much, bud.
You're welcome. Bye
Have a good
now.
day. All right. Dave Serta, legislative liaison out of the state of Wisconsin for COS. So thank you, Dave, for your work on this topic. Like I said, this is a topic that's kind of drifted away in the news. I'd be interested to know what's happened with on these burn bags and the disposal and so forth of those, and what might have been in those bags. So anyway, we'll keep an eye on this topic, and we'll update you all once we get further information. So that'll be it for Convention of States COS today. Have a good day.
Well, Dale, I got a couple of things.
All right.
Your resume, does it not contain any summer work where you were hired as a pyrotechnic specialty to get that job, and you had no pyrotechnic experience?
No, I certainly did not. No, I did not. No.
I don't know. My wife had clearance as well. She worked at the finance center in the Fort Harrison finance building. So she had to go through that. And matter of fact, I had to be, looked at too, because the finger inspection around one person getting that clearance is pretty intense. But
yeah.
I don't know. But nowadays, Dale, you talk about how I don't think there might not be burn bags anymore. They probably took a lesson from Hillary Clinton, and it's probably all bleach bits stuff.
That is a good question though.
Yeah.
We talking about classified documents. How much of our information is in fact in a document form?
Yeah, digital somewhere.
That's classified. How much of how much of our classified information is in a document form today?
Yeah.
So, we had, we had big books with classified documents in those books, and anyway, we'd get updates. We'd have to pull out the outdated ones and insert the new ones, and then burn the outdated ones. So that's
interesting area.
It was an interesting job. Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Yes, it was. Okay, Ken, let's move right on here. How about giving us a quick update on what that QR code up there?
Yeah, that little QR code that sits right up there, that's our volunteer QR code. It's just a way that you can show your support for what we're doing here. Get your smartphone out, get that QR code, and it'll ask you for your name and an email address. And that'll put you right into a platform where you can access some of our previous contributor segments, and a platform of other people that show that they support what we're doing here and want to make sure and show us that. So that's what that QR card's all about.
And it's not classified in any way, right?
No, not until we decide it needs to be, I guess.
All right. Well, Ken, we've got another interesting segment coming up here. You've heard a lot about Sharia law, I'm sure, right?
Yeah.
And, I've heard about that too. You hear about it in the news from time to time.
Yeah.
It does exist in this country, in our country, as well as other countries.
Yes, it does.
And, I never knew much about it to any extent. So one of our contributors out of the state of Idaho, Ken Whaley, plays. He serves in many roles in Idaho, but he's also one of our state content writers for our newsletter. Ken does a lot, and he publishes on Substack, and I believe another site or two. So we asked him to delve into Sharia law and to educate us on what Sharia law is all about. So I caught up with him. Huh?
There's an area just up in I believe it's Dearborn, Michigan that
Yes.
is that happening. Yeah,
He's going to mention that, and there's some pockets in other areas that you would be surprised to know that they exist. Not only in this country, but beyond this country. But anyway, and I'll be interesting to know your thoughts after you hear this interview that I did with Ken, because I really came away with a thought or two that I thought that I wasn't aware of. So I'll hold my I'll quiz you after the interview. Okay.
Fair enough.
All right, here we go. Greetings, everyone. Dale Parrish, COS Today host. We got a good topic to talk about today, and this young man from Idaho, Ken Whaley, has done a really good job, and so I want to bring him on here and let's get started with this topic. So it's Sharia law. We've all heard a lot about it, I'm sure, but Ken's going to really teach us a lot here, I think. Hello, Ken.
How are you this afternoon, Dale?
Good. Well, I said a lot of nice things about you, so don't let me down here.
Well, and you did. I like the young part. That got me all fluffed up here, ready to go.
Most of us like that. Yes, I know.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, Ken, tell us about. I know you wanted to start out here with on Sharia law. And I'll just let you go here. And I know this first part you wanted to talk about Muslim majority countries. So why don't you take it away and just get going here?
Sure, happy to. I wanted to give a little background, right, about what I felt Sharia law is. Again, this is a layman's approach to it, or actually a Christian's approach. So different side of the same coin in many ways. But basically, Sharia is understood as God's path. Matter of fact, the path is actually what Sharia means, according to what I found. So basically, the way God wills people to live encompasses worship, morality, social interactions, and in classical jurisprudence, legal rules, which, of course, is our main aspect of this today. So basically, Sharia equals a broad body of Islamic guidance, moral, devotional, and legal. Now, in Muslim majority countries such as Saudi Arabia and Iran, Sharia is codified as the state law, the country law.
Now, is it predominant in other countries other than those two?
Oh, absolutely. I just didn't want to list all of them off, but yeah, they're a fair. Pretty much any country that is Islamic, shall we say, has at least some level of. And I'll get into a little bit about how that varies some based on where and why. But yeah, but it does definitely more than just those two countries. Just those are most well known, shall we say, and easy enough for people to know about and understand, etc.
They're pretty dominant in those countries, huh?
It is the law of the land in those countries, absolutely. All right. So again, it covers civil law. It also covers criminal law. And one of the things I found kind of almost disturbing there is they have what they call hudud. I'm sorry, I'm mispronouncing that, I'm sure. Types of punishments when you break Sharia law, and those include flogging, amputations, and even stoning in some of those countries.
My.
Pretty hardcore. Yeah, it really is. But in the sense of what I was trying to focus on here, it's more about the family law aspect. And of course, that's heavily influenced by Sharia, where actions such as divorce, custody battles, and inheritance very much heavily favored the men within Islamic society. Enforcement of those laws is compulsory. Citizens and even visitors in Muslim majority countries live under Sharia just as Americans live under the Constitution here in the United States. There is an important nuance, though, I touched on a minute ago. So unlike the U.S. Constitution, which is written, fixed, and the supreme law, Sharia is applied differently depending on the specific scholars, judges, and political leaders that, quote, apply it. In essence, the enforcement can vary from country to country and even case to case. So in these nations, though, Sharia is not optional. It is the true governing law of those lands.
Okay, interesting. All right. So let's talk about Sharia in the United States then.
Okay, and of course, when we first spoke about this was kind of the main point of how the Sharia law and the constitutional law here in this country oppose, interject, interact, maybe is a better way to put that. So, of course, in America, private devotion is protected under the First Amendment, and Muslims are free to practice core Sharia duties like prayer, fasting, and zakat, which is what, again, hopefully I'm saying that correctly, basically their charitable giving, which is actually part of their religious aspects. But parallel criminal codes are not permitted. In other words, U.S. law, our Constitution, is the supreme law in the United States. So based on that and what I could find, Sharia in the U.S. appears mainly in a voluntary context. So arbitration agreements, marriage contracts, religious mediations, and courts can enforce those contracts, but if they don't conflict with public policy or U.S. laws. Now the criminal aspects. Sorry,
I said, really? I wasn't aware of it. Okay.
in other words, there's no real Sharia law in this country that's recognized. But and again, I'll get into this, but it is it can be agreed to by the various parties that have some kind of a disagreement. And again, I'll kind of touch on that in a little bit here.
Yeah.
But the criminal aspects of Sharia, i.e. the punishments in particular, have zero standing to that point. In other words, they cannot be enforced even voluntarily, at least not in the public view. And that's a critical distinction. And as we go into this a little more, that'll become a little more apparent. So one of the aspects of this, again, touching on the public view part, is that there appears to be a large underground or informal system, especially in very tight-knit communities, and oftentimes they pressure people, particularly the women, to comply with Sharia-based rulings instead of going to civil courts. So that can leave women very much trapped. So they can actually get a divorce under U.S. law, but not under Sharia law. And they're pressured actually to return to abusive marriages or even denied inheritance and custody of children under Sharia law. So in the U.S., Constitution is supreme, but cultural enforcement can make it feel as if Sharia has power when legally it doesn't.
So women might have rights, but they're pressured not to exercise those rights. Is that what we're saying? Under Sharia law?
Yes, yeah. Sir. Absolute bottom line. Yeah.
I wonder how many cases where the women didn't abide by the Sharia law. I don't know if that's would be known, but be interesting to know.
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't find any. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
Anything that doesn't go before a civil court in this country is pretty much just as if it never happened, because it happens very much in the community.
There's no record of it, I guess. Huh?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you want to talk about the underground, quote unquote, question. Okay.
Yeah. And basically that's where that last little segment was leading, because let's face it, common sense is going to dictate that underground Sharia forums exist in numerous U.S. communities, specifically locations such as Minneapolis, Minnesota, big time Islamic population there, Dearborn, Michigan, New York, and the one that surprised me was apparently there's a large Islamic population in dark parts of Dallas.
Is that right?
No, that's what I found. Yeah. So, and sometimes they settle disputes privately just with the imams. Again, I'm hoping I'm saying that correctly, or their councils, which are very common. But again, if both sides comply with listening to the imam or the council, and they don't go to civil court, there is no court record. So in essence, it's invisible to outsiders, such as you and I would be considered. So again, the Constitution remains supreme, but Islamic women may live as if it doesn't. What I found in some of the research I was doing is they're often told basically, hey, don't go to an American judge, you go to the imam, because they're the ones that will give you the Sharia law judgment, shall we say.
Yeah.
So while not replacing our Constitution, there are pockets in the U.S. where rights are never claimed due to community pressures under Sharia law, especially these little, I shouldn't say little, some of them very large pockets of Islamic populations.
That's amazing. That's amazing that goes on in this country. But anyway, I don't know. Nothing surprises me anymore, quite honestly.
Not after this last week, especially, but that's its own topic.
The woman's perspective, does she have a perspective into this?
In essence, no. And I struggled with this one a little bit because, of course, here in this country, we're very used to equal rights, everybody equal under the law, etc. But in the Islamic world, specifically under Sharia law, women are often treated as second-class citizens. As an example, their testimony when a Sharia case is being heard by an imam is technically worth less than that of a man, about half, based on my research. So even if they're absolutely right, it's taken well below face value. And of course, there are some other things that are impacted directly, or that women are impacted directly because of. There's still dowries associated with marriages in Islam or under Islamic laws.
Really?
But if there's I was surprised about that too. But well, we'll get off track if I go there.
Okay.
Excuse me. But basically, divorce requires that any dowry be returned, or the husband must consent for the wife and her family to actually keep it. Another big aspect, custody battles always favor the fathers. In other words, if you have 2 or 3 kids with a man as a woman and go through a divorce, even if you get the divorce under Sharia law, which is doubtful, more than likely, a very high percentage of the time, the kids go with the father, regardless of the overall circumstances.
Wow.
Yeah. It's very, very different than our rules and laws here.
Yes,
so
very different. Yes.
Yeah. One of the things that really surprised me, there was a section that I found was called disobedience accusations, which basically lead to pressure to reconcile or public shaming. In other words, when I asked, well, what is disobedience accusations? In Islamic jurisprudence, a wife could be accused of what they call nushuz. And again, I'm probably butchering that word, which literally means rising up a rebellion. So if you tell your husband to go take a hike, or you're disobedient or defiant in any way, in essence, that is they can accuse you of disobedience. And that alone is enough that the man can take control of the kids, do numerous things like this. It's rather severe in that sense. The women definitely don't have the same level of rights and privileges that they do here. Punishment wise, in the U.S., it's social, financial, and reputational, but not legal. In other words, those things can happen within that little community, but none of those things are legal. Whereas under Sharia law, if that decision is made that way, a woman can literally be forced back into an abusive marriage. So on paper, the rights are protected. In practice, they're pretty well trapped by the cultural enforcement of Sharia law.
Wow. Okay, let's move on here. I think the next part you want to do was Europe versus the United States. This ought to be very interesting.
Well, then it was interesting when I did the research as well, because of course I won't call it a problem, but there's a much greater influx of Islam and Islamic population into many regions within Europe. Yeah. So it would stand to reason that many parts of Europe have more enforcement, so to speak, or legal aspect of Sharia law. But in reality, I found that they have no official legal standing in Europe either. They have, they don't have a constitution that we have, but they have their own civil codes and laws, and those are still the supreme law of the land. So the same thing applies here, or I'm sorry, within Europe as it does here, where Sharia shows up mainly through voluntary arbitration, religious contracts, or community councils, which I mentioned earlier. Basically, they're the ones you would go to as a party and a claim of some kind to have a judgment made. But like here, like in the United States, when Sharia law principles clash with civil law, the civil law prevails in the court system. But again, the real issue is the community pressure, because women often feel trapped in the shadow system where rights under national law or European Union law go unclaimed. So really the difference is in Europe, Sharia councils are more formal and visible, especially in countries like the United Kingdom and Germany, where they have upwards of 40% population of Islam. While in the U.S. they're lower profile and surface mainly through private disputes. So there's a big difference, but at the same time, from a legal perspective, it's approached in the same way. It's just more prevalent that the women in particular would go to the Sharia councils to have some kind of a dispute, such as a divorce dealt with.
Well, I'll tell you, if I was a woman getting married under Sharia law, that's a pretty big decision. I mean, they know what could happen here if. So that's a pretty big decision for him, I would think.
I'm sorry, one of the things that you touched on that topic, one of the things that I found was that, it's, I want to be gentle here, because the customs and traditions when it comes to women being married, often in their, again, I got to be gentle here. It's almost like they're sold into, or prearranged marriage is maybe the best way to put it.
Right.
So often they don't have a choice. And again, once they're in the marriage, they're considered second-class citizens anyway. I don't mean to sidetrack, but that gets away from Sharia law. That's just Islamic, centuries-old customs.
Okay. Well, you next segment you wanted to touch on was takeaway for America.
Yeah, in the United States, we have one law, the United States Constitution. One guiding factor towards all the various laws that our Constitution has been turned into, but again, that's a different topic. So Sharia law has never legally replaced U.S. law, at least none that I could find anyway, within the United States. But again, there is a danger here. Some live as if it is, especially again the women in closed communities, or they're very likely rights unclaimed due to cultural and local community enforcement.
Right.
And again, I was unable to find a situation where a woman was stoned or anything like that within the United States. Doesn't mean it hasn't happened, but there's nothing on record, because again, they keep that very closed into their local community situation. And again, Europe shows a parallel system, Sharia law versus what I consider their European Union laws. And if left unchecked, can and will erode the liberties of the folks that fall, again, specifically the women, under Sharia law. And honestly, America really can't afford to go there. It's just not somewhere I see us going. Problem is, because it's underground and you don't see it, it's very hard to stop or even see to be able to look at and try and stop in some other way.
All right. Well, summarize this for us then, Ken.
Do my best for you, sir. So I wanted to wrap it up basically by saying that Sharia law is a powerful force in many parts of the world. The Islamic population is huge, and its influence has quietly crept into Europe and in the United States. So in Muslim majority nations, Sharia law is truly the law of the land. It dictates civil contracts, criminal punishments, family matters, inheritance, right on down the line. Citizens live under it as Americans live under the Constitution, is about the easiest way to put that. But here's the critical difference in my mind. In America, the Constitution is supreme. Article 6 makes it very clear that there's one love above all, one law. Try that one again. There's one law above all. And the First Amendment guarantees every citizen has the right to worship freely without imposing religious law on others, meaning that Sharia law has no legal standing in our courts, in the United States courts or in the European courts. Yet beneath the surface, Sharia's shadow does appear. In Europe, it's taken the form of tribunals and councils that pressure women into what they call limping marriages, where they're forced back into a marriage. Even though they're legally divorced in United States law, they're forced under Sharia law and their community to go back into that kind of a marriage, and sometimes back to be with abusive husbands. Obviously, that's a touchy subject, and I don't want to get too deep in that, but it can be pretty brutal that way. But in the United States, it shows up through private contracts, community arbitration, and cultural enforcement. U.S. courts will never uphold Sharia over the Constitution, but within some communities, women live as if Sharia rules their lives, and truthfully, it does often. So in essence, they're free under constitutional law, but trapped under Sharia law, especially within the tight communities that they've pulled together.
Wow. Okay. So, these poor women, I don't know how else to say it. These poor women are trapped. And are I don't know that they're, I'm talking about in our country. They're not really trapped, but in essence they are if they're under the community pressure. So there's no doubt about that. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, fortunately, the Constitution still prevails here in this country. So we want to keep it that way. And of course, we would like to change it and do some things to enhance it. That's what Convention of States is all about. So,
absolutely.
Ken, thank you very much. Thank you very much for this quick course on Sharia law. So appreciate it. Thank you very much, Ken.
Absolutely, Dale. My pleasure.
Thank you. Well, I want to thank Ken for educating us quickly here on Sharia law. I think he did a very, very good job. I know I've certainly, I've often wondered about this. I've often wondered how prevalent it was. Once in a while, you hear about it here in this country, and I've often wondered how prevalent it is. So I want to thank Ken for what he did to bring more knowledge to us about Sharia law. So that'll be it, folks. Thank you very much for tuning in. Have a good day. Well, Ken, did you learn a lot about that Sharia law?
I did, Dale. I thought Ken did an excellent job delving into some of that. I'm not sure. I know you when I mentioned it, you were aware of Dearborn mainly because you spoke with Ken on this. Were you also aware that in East Plano, Texas, there was a city called Epic? That
remember that was that. Does that exist, or is that to be built?
Listen, well, this was the last reading I checked in on that. It was back in March, so it's been a while. I probably need to go back and refresh what's happened. It was a planned city, and the governor, Governor Abbott said basically, this isn't gonna happen if you're planning Sharia law, and it was not something that they claimed was going to be part of the city, but it sure looked like there was, if they got this city built, there'd be nothing really to stop it. So there was a point of contention there, and I'm not sure. I like I said the last time I had checked in on it, it was not being allowed at the time. So I need to check into that. But yeah, I mean that's just another example of the spread of even just the thinking of building just a complete city where they, and they're free to worship under our Constitution, which is right. But the whole discussion you had there points out why our Constitution rules. So
I was really struck by on Ken's report. I was really struck by the women's perspective part of it.
Yeah.
How they are really, I tell you, they if you're a lady entering into a Sharia law marriage, you got to realize you have to realize that you are really giving up a lot.
Yeah, and I'm surprised we don't hear, you don't hear from our feminist groups, on this. At least it's not something that's in the topic or in the news. But yeah, it's sad that that actually a woman can look at that and say, well, I'm okay with that, or maybe they're not okay with it. But like Ken had said, some of them are forced into a pre-planned.
Even in this country where they're protected by certain laws and rights, where they could legally get a divorce under our laws, but due to community pressure through Sharia law, that they would have to go live with that same environment, though.
So the fear factor there enters in, obviously. So
So it's hard to understand, very hard to understand. Okay. Yeah. Moving right along, let's let Maringo Mike give us another reminder here real quick.
All right.
Before the night's over here.
Maringo Mike here, asking you to hit that like, subscribe, and especially that notification bell so you'll be reminded every time we go live. We really do appreciate your support. Now, back to our program.
Thanks, Maringo.
He's got it again.
Nails it every time. I don't get it.
Well, every week we try to feature a little segment on Dave's Daily Dose, which is provided to us by David Punt out of Minnesota. And he's going to talk to us tonight, Ken, about mortgage fraud. Ought to be pretty good here. So let's bring that on.
Lisa. 3 potential mortgage fraud violations? 3? Shouldn't a Harvard-educated doctorate and Biden-appointed Senate-approved Federal Reserve governor know better? True, she got the appointment by a Kamala tiebreaker, but come on. This is Dave's Daily Dose on BrooklynRoadRadio.com. I'm David Allen Punt. If Lisa Cook wasn't a Fed governor, mortgage fraud doesn't seem like a big deal, does it? True, the max penalty for mortgage fraud could be up to 30 years in prison, and she loses the house, or houses in this case. Dr. Cook has filed a lawsuit. She'd like a jury trial in Washington, D.C., and hopefully get a good jury to give her a pass, but the appeals would not go as well. The Department of Justice has announced that they would just as soon not press charges for mortgage fraud for whatever reason. Some federal websites suggest that in spite of the mountain of papers one has to sign to get a mortgage to buy a house, mistakes are made. Some say as much as 10% of all mortgages, and most of them are clerical. Interestingly enough, Cook or her attorney, Abby Lowell, haven't given a reason for Lisa to put both houses, the Michigan place and the condo in Atlanta, down as her primary residence. Mortgage fraud laws are usually about 2 areas: an investor or realtor trying to make more money, or a homeowner trying to get a lower interest rate, which is something Cook, Fed Chair Jerome Powell, and the rest of the board know something about: interest rates, and have something to do with controlling the rise and fall of them. And as far as Trump and the administration is concerned, they say it just looks bad for a Fed governor to be doing this questionable legal stuff. Treasury Secretary Bessent chimed in on the Zero Hedge article that, strangely enough, Lisa doesn't offer an excuse. Slip of the pen, ignorance of the law, greed, a clumsy clerk, nothing. Which is odd for a bureaucrat. They usually have lots of excuses for doing stuff when they get caught. The trial judge last week didn't give Lisa her temporary restraining order to get Donnie J off her back. Now, with a third mortgage fraud charge. Buying a property with a second mortgage, it looks rough for Dr. Cook, even though she got the Kamala tiebreaker. I'm David Allen Punt.
How does someone indicate 3 different houses as their primary residence?
More evidence of our two-tiered system going on in this country. It really is a shame that we have to put up with people like this.
And evidently that they're not going to pursue this. Is that what he's saying?
That's what Dave is leading to. Although I again, Dale,
I don't know.
I don't know how it doesn't get just brought to justice. You or I, we would already be wearing orange.
We'd be toast. We'd be toast.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Okay. Well, Ken, let's start wrapping things up this evening. Coming up next Monday is our roundtable, which every fourth Monday of the month, we change the format to a panel discussion. And we're going to do it next Monday evening, the 22nd. The topic is Faith in America. And John Ackerman is going to our host for the roundtable. John selects the topic every month. So this is one I think that's dear to his heart, being a retired college professor. I think he taught divinity, am I saying it right?
Yeah, I think he was. He taught that, but I think he was also for a while an actual minister there.
Minister, yes.
Yeah.
He's an ordained minister.
Yeah.
So this is a topic that's I think dear to his heart, and so this ought to be a good discussion. That's coming up next Monday on the roundtable. As usual, folks, anytime if you have any questions or comments about tonight's program, drop us an email. RaiseYourVoiceCOS@gmail.com. RaiseYourVoiceCOS@gmail.com. All right, Ken, let's let Maringo Mike close us out here this evening. And was that you?
Yeah, that was me.
Okay.
Usually I have my notifications all turned off, and at a certain point, it being that we are going longer in our format, that it turns back on again. So
it turns back on. Okay. All right. Well, folks, thank you for tuning in tonight. I hope you've enjoyed our program. I think we had a good one tonight for you, and we've got some very, very interesting segments coming up in the near future here. We're working on some very interesting things. I think you're going to enjoy quite a bit. So with that said, I'll say good night to everyone. And Ken, have a good evening.
You too. We'll see you at the summit.
All right. You bet.
Marengo Mike here with a reminder that our work to raise the bar on making our federal government accountable to the people is only halfway done. We need to grow our grassroots army of citizens every day to fulfill the vision of our forefathers and keep our land free and prosperous. So, if you have never signed the petition to show your support, use that QR code and do that now. While you're there, why not kick it up a notch and volunteer for many of the positions available where your talents can make a difference as we march into a new year. Thank you, and God bless.